Hello, my name is Joshua Mugabi. I welcome you to topic 11.1, Inheritance. We are looking at learning outcome B. Understand the concept of inheritance using genetic diagrams. We are going to look at learning activity. In groups, learners research on inheritance and develop an activity using colored beans to explain the concept to the rest of the class. Ensure that individuals explain using annotated diagrams. Item 1, Principle of Inheritance. Principles of inheritance. We are looking at animal resemblance. Learners observe that some young animals resemble their parents in traits such as skin color, height, or horns. So we have our diagram here, and you can see these animals. Some may be young ones, some may be parents. But when you look at the young ones, all of them, they resemble their parents in traits, skin color, height, and also the types of horns they have. Tasks. Define inheritance. Define inheritance. Inheritance is the passing over characteristics from parents to offsprings through genes. So we are saying that inheritance is the passing over of the characteristics, like the way we said the horns, from the parent to the offspring through genes. So when you look at the younger ones having similar traits, like for example skin color, which is coming from the parent, that process of the parent passing over that trait of skin color to its offspring through genes is what we call inheritance. State 2 examples of inherited characteristics. They want us to state 2 examples of inherited characteristics. We have, for example, we have eye color, we have skin color, we have blood groups, and we have also hair texture. Many traits are passed over, but we have just mentioned a few. Item 2, Principles of Inheritance. We want to look at trait transmission question. trait transmission question. Alana asks, why siblings from the same parents do not always look exactly alike? They are siblings, all are coming from the same parent, but when you look at them, they don't look exactly alike. They are different. Tasks. Explain this observation using the concept of inheritance. So they want us to explain what we have observed using the concept of inheritance. What have we observed? We have observed that the siblings, all of them, they are coming from the same parent, but they don't always look exactly alike. So, can we explain that observation using the concept of genetics? So here we can say that each parent passes one gene of a trait to the offspring. So when we are going to have, for example, this one, each parent passed one gene. Maybe there was a gene coming from the mother, and there was another gene coming from the father. So those genes were passed over to that one. So the same applies when you come also to this one. One gene came from the father, and another gene came from the mother, and then the rest. But again, we say that different combinations of genes results in variation among offsprings. We are looking at different combination of genes. All of them, they have received a gene from the father and a gene from the mother. A gene from the father and a gene from the mother. But what is causing them to look differently? It is because the genes they are getting, they are different. One can get this gene from the father and gets this gene from the mother. And another one may get this gene from the father and this gene from the father. So when you look at these two organisms, you are going to see that these organisms have got different combinations of genes. If you look at the genes that came from the mother, they are different. And the genes that came from the father, they are also different. And these are two offsprings or siblings. Because they have got different combinations of genes, it is going to result in variation among the offsprings. This causes siblings to show similarities and differences. So we looked previously about the combination of genes provided. So it will cause some of them to look similar. Like that one and that one, they can look similar. But again, when you look at this one and this one, maybe also this one, they look alike. So there are some that are looking similar and the others are looking different from the others. This is brought about by different gene combinations. Item 3. We are still on the principles of inheritance. This time let us look at alleles using models. A teacher introduces alleles using physical objects to represent genes. We have our diagrams here. We have the red beads, we have the white beads, and then we have a combination. Tasks. State what alleles are. They want us to state what alleles are. Alleles are different forms of the same gene. Alleles, they are different forms of the same gene. For example, if we look here, let us say that we are looking at color. It can be skin color. It can be any trait. And if you pick one here, one allele, a gene, now let's use the same color. If we picked one gene here, this is a gene for skin color. We have picked it from here, this parent. And then from this parent, we also pick another gene, that one. That one is also a gene for skin color. This one has been picked from this parent, and this one has been picked from this parent. But both these genes, they determine color. But when you look at them, all of them, they are genes for color, but they are different. But it is the same gene, a gene for color. But this one is another form, and this one is in another form. So all of them, they are the same gene. They are genes for color, but they look different. So now we call them allele. This is an allele of the gene of skin color, and this is an allele of the gene of skin color. They are all the same gene because they determine the color of the skin, but they are in different forms. So that's what we call allele. Alleles are different forms of the same gene. Explain why models are useful in learning inheritance. They want us to give an explanation why models are very useful in learning inheritance. The models, they help the learners visualize abstract ideas. When you are using a model, it will help the learner to observe something which we are explaining, which is abstract, which is not seen. For example, when we talk about genes, genes are not visible. And then when we say XY, they form a boy. XX, they will form a girl. Or a gene for red color mixes with a gene for white color. Then we get an animal with red eye color. Those ones are abstract ideas. But if we bring them in a model, we have these are genes for skin color, and these are genes for skin color. Maybe this parent is brown. This parent is having a white skin color. So when they are giving their offspring, they will pick from these genes. This one is going to bring a gene for red color. Okay, we shall have a gene for red color here, coming from that parent. And then we shall have a white gene coming from this parent. We pick one bead. You pick a bead from here, and you pick another bead from here. Now these two beads, they are representing our alleles. These two beads are representing our gene. So instead of using abstract ideas that the gene from the white and the gene from the red are mixed together, it becomes really very easier to visualize the abstract idea if we use model type of learning. And then this one also makes learning practical and easier to understand. So when we are talking about this one, pick from here, make the two, now that one is going to become a combination of genes. That one is more of practical, and it becomes very easy for the learner to understand. Item 4. We are still on the principles of inheritance. We want to look at the practical activity. And here in the practical activity, we are going to use colored beads to explain inheritance. Tasks. Our activity title is Modeling Inheritance Using Colored Beads. That is our title. Modeling Inheritance Using Colored Beads. That is the title. Then the materials we are going to use. We are going to use the red beads. These ones are going to represent a dominant allele, which we are going to call R. And we are going to use the blue beads. The blue beads are going to represent a recessive allele, which is represented by a small r. So we shall also have small caps or envelopes, and these ones will represent the parent gametes. We can also have charts and exercise books. Concept represented. We are now looking at the concept representation. We have the red beads. These ones are representing the dominant trait. And we have the blue beads R. These ones are representing the recessive trait. So the trait examples we have, for example, seed color, or it can be eye color. This is simplified. So now let us go to our item 4. 2 parents, each carrying one dominant allele R and one recessive allele small r. So we are having 2 parents. Each one is carrying a dominant allele and a recessive allele. Tasks. Setting up parents. Each parent gets one red bead and one blue bead. So we are going to set up our experiment, and we shall have 2 parents, but each parent should get a red bead and a blue bead. So the learners place beads in 2 separate cups labeled parent 1 and parent 2. So we have our parent 1 and then parent 2. So these cups are representing parent 1, and this cup here is representing parent 2. And each one has got a red bead, which is dominant, and a blue bead, which is recessive. So these are the genotypes of our parents, or the genes that they have as each parent. Two, gamete formation. We are moving to gamete formation, and it should be random selection. What are we going to do? We are going to shake each cup, and after shaking, we pick one bead from each parent and combine 2 beads to form an offspring's genotype. So here what we are going to do, we are going to form gametes, and it is going to be a random selection. Shake the cups, pick a bead from each parent, and combine the 2 beads from each parent to form the offspring genotype. So the offspring genotypes, we are first starting with the parent. We have our parent 1 here with the beads here representing the genotype of the parent, and parent 2 with the beads representing the genotype of parent 2. So now, parent 1 has released one bead, and parent 2 has also released one bead. And when the 2 combine together, now these ones turn into what we call the offspring's genotype. Remember, we were saying the gamete formation, it should be random selection. We shake each cup, pick one bead from each parent, which becomes the gamete. So we picked one blue from this parent, was brought here, and one which is red from this parent. And those are our gametes. Now these gametes, when they come, we combine the two beads to form an offspring's genotype. So what we have formed here, this is the offspring genotype. Gamete, fusion, and then we got the offspring genotype. Now let us look at offspring combinations. Offspring combinations. We are still on the same practical activity, using colored beads to explain inheritance. But we are going to emphasize on the possible offspring combinations we can get from these parents. So, a learner repeats the selection several times and records the results. So we are having parent 1 and parent 2. These are their genotypes, which we are going to take as also the formation of gametes. So these ones will be the gametes formed by parent 1, and these ones will be the gametes formed by parent 2. So now we have formed the combinations. If you look at this combination, this parent here has given us this gamete. And this one gave us this gamete here. And they formed this offspring. At the same time, this parent can still give us this gamete here, and this one can give us this gamete here, and it goes with this one. And there is a possibility of forming that offspring. Now, when we come again, the parent here can give us this gamete to form this one, and this one can give us this gamete, and we form this offspring here. Still the same parent here, this gamete can still combine with this gamete here, and we can form this offspring here. So there is this possibility of forming these offsprings. This offspring combination is possible, meaning that this gamete here can freely combine either with this one or can combine with this one. And this gamete here can randomly combine with this one and randomly combine with this one. And these are the resulting offsprings that we are going to get. Now, observation and recording. When you observe, remember we said that the red allele is dominant to the blue allele. So if it is eye color, red is dominant to blue. So on the offsprings we have got, out of the 4 offsprings, these offsprings we have got here, this is an offspring, this is an offspring, this is an offspring, and this is an offspring. So when we are recording, if it is eye color, red eye color, this offspring is going to be having red eye color. This one will have red eye color because red is dominant to blue. And this offspring will also have red eye color because there is a combination in the combination there is a red allele which is dominant to the blue. Therefore, the trait here is going to be dominant, the red color. Whereas this one, because they are recessive, both of them, then the eye color is going to be blue. So here we shall have recessive trait, and here we shall have dominant traits. Then the offspring combinations, here we are going to get 3 out of 4. They are going to be dominant traits. And 1 out of 4 is going to be a recessive trait. A trait is a character. If red eyes are existing in a population with the blue eyes, that is called a character. Eye color. Eye color is a character. There are those ones that are having red, and there are those ones that are having blue. That is what we are referring to as a trait. So, if the parents are both heterozygous dominant, having a red gene and a blue gene, and they are crossed, these are the possibilities of the offsprings they are going to have. There are 3 chances out of 4 for those offsprings to have red color or dominant trait. And there is 1 chance out of 4 for the children to have blue color or recessive trait. That is our offspring combinations. So here we can summarize and say that most of the offsprings, they show a dominant trait, and only very few will show the recessive trait. Like we have seen here, 3 out of 4, they are going to show a dominant trait, and 1 out of 4 will show a recessive trait. Now, the trait depends on allele combinations, not choice. So the type of trait that we are going to get is going to depend on the combination of the alleles, not the choice. If the allele is dominant at the dominant, we are going to have a dominant trait. Dominant and a recessive, dominant and a recessive, a dominant trait is going to be observed because of the combination of a dominant allele and a recessive allele. So if it is a recessive allele and a recessive allele, then this one we shall receive a recessive trait. That's why we are saying the traits depend on allele combinations, not choice. We go to item 5. We are still on the principles of inheritance. This time we are going to look at linking it to real life. We want to link it to real life. Learners relate bead colors to eye color inheritance in human. They are relating bead colors to eye color inheritance in humans. So in our diagram here, we have two types of beads. They are the red and the white beads. And this one is going to be a combination of the beads. Task. Explain why a child may have a recessive trait even when parents show a dominant trait. So here they want us to explain why a child may have a recessive trait even when parents show a dominant trait. So here they are saying, for example, the eye color. The parents may have the eye color, which is dominant, but the child shows a different eye color. Let me just give a simple example here. This is parent 1. These are the eyes of the parent 1. And these are the eyes of the parent 2. But now, when we cross these parents, we get a child who has these eyes. But the parents have got different eye color. And the offspring has got different color. So they want us to explain why a child may have a recessive trait, yet the parents show a dominant trait. Parents have got these red eyes, and the child has got blue eyes. Can you explain that one? Why is it like that? Parents have got red eyes, and the child has blue eyes. So, the parents may carry recessive allele without showing it. If a child inherits two recessive alleles, then the recessive trait appears. I don't know whether you have got this one. I'll try to illustrate a little bit, because here they have brought in the recessive. So here I'm going to do it like this. If this is parent A, now we are not looking at the eye, we are looking at their genes. They have one gene which is red and another gene which is blue. Okay, that is parent 1. And then we have parent 2 also has a red gene, and she also has a blue gene. Okay, she has got a blue gene, but their eye color is red. But genotypically, they have got a recessive allele in their genes. But because this recessive allele is existing with the dominant allele, so the dominant is going to suppress the recessive, and the eye color will now be what? Red. Their eye color will be red. But we are saying that in the combination, if at all this gene here is given to the offspring, and the mother also gives the same gene, that one, then the child is going to have two genes which are blue alleles. Now the child is going to express a recessive trait. Why? Because the two recessive alleles now can express themselves, because there is no dominant allele combination in the combination which can suppress their expression. So that's why we are saying that a child to have a recessive trait yet the parents are showing a dominant trait. This is because the parents are carrying a recessive allele. Both parents are carrying a recessive allele, but for them they are showing a dominant trait because the recessive allele is being suppressed by the dominant allele. Now, if these recessive alleles are inherited by the child, this blue and this blue allele are both inherited by the child, then the recessive allele will appear. The recessive trait will appear because both the recessive traits or the recessive allele are in the genotype of the offspring. Therefore, the trait or the character will be of blue eyes. Learners explain inheritance using beads to appear. So our learners now, they are going to explain inheritance and they are going to use beads and they're going to explain to appear. Beads, they represent alleles. One bead comes from each parent, and the combination determines the trait expressed. So the learners are going to pick beads from this parent, and then beads from this parent. Then they will combine the two and make a combination. And this combination is going to determine the type of trait expressed. Key takeaway. The key takeaway here is that now inheritance involves genes, and these genes are passed from parents to their offsprings. Then the traits, they depend on allele combination. The trait observed by the offspring will depend on the allele combination from the parents. The models, they help us understand unseen biological processes. So when we are using beads, we are seeing unseen biological processes like genes during meiosis segregating and then combining, form gametes and so on and form offspring. Now the learners can, 1, correctly use beads. They can correctly use beads to model inheritance. 2, they can record results in a simple table. 3, they can explain the outcomes using correct terms. And they can work cooperatively in groups. Thank you very much for participating in topic 11.1, which is inheritance. We have been looking at learning outcome B. Understand the concept of inheritance using genetic diagrams. In groups, learners research on inheritance and develop an active using colored beads to explain the concept to the rest of the class. Ensure that individuals explain using annotated diagrams.